What's up guys, this is Evandro Viegas and welcome to this tutorial. In this video, you'll be able to create a fully functional application with the power of Next.js, ChatCN, PostgreSQL and Prisma. This full stack application is going to include everything that an app should have: a fully functional form with validation, a table that shows every task and also give us possibility to edit or delete the task with the help of a model. And finally, a real-time chart section that acts reactively when we add, edit or delete a task. By the end of this video, you'll be able to create any crude application that you ever imagine. Advanced topics such as revalidations, mutations, server actions, client and server components, caching and data fetching are going to be covered in this video. So if you don't have any experience with Next.js, you'll be fully covered. Are you ready? So without further ado, let's get straight to it. So the very first thing that we need to do is create a folder where we're going to store our project. So let me click new folder, and this is going to be to do or task app, just like this. Oh, we have to put this on, in lowercase because Node.js no longer supports folders with uppercase. And then we have to open Visual Studio Code, so let me quickly open it. There we go, we have our Visual Studio Code right here. We just have to drag this folder into here. So we have our code environment ready. So quickly open your terminal with Ctrl-G and then let's install Next.js. So, and we have to use the command Next.js create next app latest. So we are going to use that command and add the dot in the end, so it's going to install in the current folder. And it's going to ask us questions. If you want to use TypeScript, I want to use TypeScript. I want to use ESLint, Tailwind CSS, the one src folder, and app router ES I'm going to use, and import alias, and there we go. And now it's just installing our dependencies, and I'll be back when it's done. There we go, we have everything installed, and now we just need to install ChatCN. So we are going to use npx ChatCN latest init. So this is going to initialize a ChatCN in our project, and it's also going to ask us some questions. If you want to proceed, yes. There we go, and now it's going to ask us what style do we want to use. It's whatever, you can start with New York. And then the base color, I'm going to go with zinc. I recommend you to go with CSS variables. So let's hit yes. There we go. So everything is installed. So let's use npm run dev to see our app live. So there we go, we have our project running on localhost. For me it's 3000 because I have the final version on the localhost 3000. So throughout the video we are going to compare the versions to see if it's matching. So the first thing that I like to do in every project is start with the themes, right? So we are using ChatCN as I said, and to start with the themes I like to go to here, themes, and you can go here on customize and you customize as you want. So I'm going to use default. I'm going with zinc, and for radios I'm going with, let's see, we can go with 1, and mode I'm going with dark. Okay, so you can copy the code. So this is the code for the theme. There we go, and I'll go to, then we have to go to app and on globals, and you might have this right here. This is what ChatCN installed for you. So you just have to remove everything. So layer, remove everything from the layer and paste it out. Okay, so very important, this part is very important. You can remove everything, but don't remove the radius, right? So remove everything but the radius, and then everything that is on this dark class you can put on the root class. What we did just now is to customize the colors and the radius for our application. So ChatCN is going to use those colors for the components. So for example, the background, foreground, the primary color, secondary, everything is going to be used on the application. Okay, so now we have our app with a theme that we want. So we can remove this root and media, we don't need it, and also this body. Okay, everything seems perfect. Alright, so let's put everything side by side. So our application here and the code editor here. Okay, so this is the final product of our application, and this is currently how it's looking right now. So we can start by removing everything from the page. There we go. Let me just add a div right here, and then we go back to layout. So on layout, you can change here the title to my task app, and you can also add a description. So this is an full stack task app. There we go, my task app. And now you can go back to the page, and as you can see, we currently don't have anything on it. So the first thing we have to do, first let me just take off the image right here, is add a class name to this div and start with a hide screen, flex column, and justify between. There you go. So this is the final product of our application, right? So as you can see, we can divide this by 4 sections. We have here the navbar, we have the task form, we have the chart, and we have the task list. So let's start with the navbar. And to do this, we have to create a components folder, and inside of the components folder, we are going to have our navbar folder. So just a quick trick to don't have to create folder and then folder again, just create a new file, create the components folder, and then use slash, and then navbar, and then slash again, and index.txx. This is going to create the components and navbar folder for you. So use rfcc to create a function component. If you don't have this extension, go to here extensions and just download the ES7 extension for React. Alright, so now let's replace div by nav, because this is a navbar, and we're going to use class name and use flex, justify between, item center, px4 and py2. And inside of this nav, we're going to create a div, which is going to be class name, flex, item center, and a gap of 12. So what we're doing here, we are dividing the navbar by 2. So on the left side, we have this component right here and the navs, and on the right side, we have the search bar and our profile picture. So we're going to start with this component right here. So let's go back and create this twin switcher. This is the component that we're going to build. So inside of the navbar, we're going to create a file named theme switcher.tsx and use rfc command to generate the component. And let me just quickly change this. There we go. And I'm gonna have to import this, and let me just change here the navbar to navbar and go to the page and import this navbar so we can see the results changing. So navbar, if you want to import automatically, use navbar like this and click Ctrl and click enter. So this is going to import it automatically for you. Okay, so I'm going to go to theme switcher. So on this theme switcher component, we are going to use shadcn components, right? So let's go to the terminal and create a new terminal, and you can put side by side. So to install components, we're going to use npx shadcn latest add, and the component that we're going to use is the pop over component. So quickly install it. There you go. As you can see, we have a new component in here on components, UI, and popover. Not only that, we're also going to use the avatar component. So quickly install it. Avatar is done, and also we also need the command component. There we go. So we can close this by now and start coding. So on the top level, we're going to have our popover component. Make sure that you're importing from the UI popover component and not from Redux UI, otherwise you're not going to see nothing. So popover, and inside of popover, we're going to use popover trigger, and we are also going to use a button instead of the popover trigger. Yeah, there's one thing that I forgot to install, that is the button. So install here, add button, and import the button here to the dependencies. There we go. So what we're doing here is this popover trigger, which is going to trigger this little thing dialog to show up. So the trigger is this button, which we are doing now. Here you see that we have a little avatar on here, and then the name and this theme switcher. So let's build it. So start by, we have some class names to put in our button. So is variant. We're going to use the outline variant. Role is going to be combo box. Area label is going to be select theme, and class name is going to be y dash and 200 pixels, and then justify between. There we go. So this is the size of the button, so the width, and then justify between, so everything is going to be separated by another. So inside of this button that we just created, we are going to use an avatar component. So make sure that you're importing from UI and not from Redux. And we're going to use some class names. So class name, so it's going to be margin right of 2, height of 6, width of 6, and for the avatar, inside of the avatar, we're also going to create another component, which is going to be avatar image. So this is a self-closing component, and inside of this self-closing component, we're going to use the src prop, and this is going to be the image. So Vercel has an API which you can change here this parameter, and it's going to give you a random image. As you can see, if you type something, you're going to give a complete different image. So you can use this for your application. So in the src, we're going to use http avatar.vercel.sh/ you can put your name if you want, so I'm going to leave my name right here, .png, or you can use whatever image that you want, is up to you. And then for the out is for the people who can see the site, have some description about the image. So this is an avatar, so I'm going to leave here avatar. And there we go. So here on the final product, we have a gray image. If you want, you can go with a gray image by just using class name and use gray scale like this. It's going to give you a gray image, but for me, I prefer going without the gray image. So it's given us some errors. Unsupported server component type undefined. I'm not quite sure what it means, so I'm just going to restart the server. So npm run dev again. There you go. Now you can see that we can see our application, which is a local mistake. So Below the avatar image, we're going to use a component named avatar fallback. This component is going to be used when the image is not fully loaded. So we're going to use the fallback when this happens. So if we refresh, you can see it starts with this fallback, and then when the image is loaded, is replaced. Very nice. So below this avatar, you can put your name. So this is my name. There you go. And below your name, you can use another component, which is an icon. So is this icon right here, this caret. So we are going to use it. So it's going to be caret sort icon, and this is coming from Redux UI. So one mistake that I did is don't import this from Redux UI. You have to import it from the avatar. So be sure that you're importing it from the avatar. There we go. So we have our popover done, but you can see that when we click on it, nothing happens. Well, this is because we don't have any content, so we have to do that. So start with the popover content, and this popover content is going to have a class name of width of 80. Okay, and we're also going to use the comment component. So import comment from UI. Always import from UI, don't forget it. And inside of the comment, we're going to have the comment input. It's a self-closing component, but we're also going to have a placeholder, which we can use like search theme. So hopefully when we click on it, you can see that we have something appear, which is a search input. Very nice. And then you can create another component below this input, which is going to be the comment list. So quickly import it, and inside of the comment list, go with comment empty, which you can use no theme found. So this component is going to be used when we try to search up something in a list, and if nothing shows up, then it's going to show no theme found. Let me just quickly show you. So if I try to type something and you can find what I'm looking for, this is going to show up. So name theme found. Okay, so now we have to put some content inside of this list. So let's go above here and create an array. So this is going to be const groups, which is going to have an object inside with a label of personal account and themes. You can put another object inside of it, which is going to have another label of, you can put your name inside of it, just like I did. And now you can copy this object and create another one just here below it, and label, you can put like themes, and on the themes property you can put your label. So I'm going to leave like this and create 2 or 3 more just like this. So you might be asking, why is this for? So it's to do this. So we have here a group of personal account and then 2 other groups of inside of the themes group. So but if you go back to our application, you can see that nothing is showing up, right? To make it show it up, we have to go to below the comment empty and create a dynamic block, and inside of it we're going to use groups dot map. So we are going to map throughout all of the groups that we have, and for each group we are going to have a comment group. Don't forget to put a key in it so React knows when to render it, and the key is going to be group dot label, as we don't have equal labels. So one is team and another is personal account. And for the heading, you do the same thing. So it's going to be group.label. Okay, inside of this group we're going to have our items, so use group dot teams dot theme, and for each theme we're going to render a comment item. So it's complaining because we don't have a key, so a key is going to be a theme label. And make sure that you don't have labels with the same name as I have right here. So I'm just going to use like v1, v2, and v3. Just don't have same keys. And then add a class name to it, which is going to be text sm, which is small. And then inside of the comment item, we're going to use the avatar, which is going to have the class name of margin right of 2, height of 5, width of 5. And inside of this avatar, we're going to have the avatar image, which is going to have a source. And as I said, Vercel can give us some random avatars. So inside of the avatar image, we're going to use the source, and the source is going to be https column / avatar dot vercel dot sh slash again, and we're going to use a dynamic block, which we're going to put the theme.label, so it's going to give us a different image for each of the labels. So we're also going to use a out section, which inside is going to be a theme.label for the people who can see. And if you want, you can use a grayscale. I'm not going. So below the avatar, we're going to use the avatar fallback, which, as I said, if we don't have the image loaded, this is going to show up. So the avatar label, I'm going to use theme.label, and class name is going to be uppercase. Just a mistake that I did. Avatar fallback is inside of the avatar, it cannot be outside. So let me refresh, and you can already see the command showing up. And below the avatar, we just have to add a theme.label, so we have some text in here. There we go. Alright, I promised that we are almost done with this component. So below this comment list, we're going to use a comment separator, and below the comment separator, we're going to use comment list, and instead of command list, we're going to use command group, and inside of command group, we're going to use command item, and finally inside of command item, we're going to use icon, which is going to be plus circle icon. It's coming from Lucid React or Radix UI. You import whenever you want. So we're going to use a class name. So the class name is going to be margin right of 2 and height of 5 and width of 5, which is going to have a create theme down here, and we must, and there we go, you see that we have this component built. So we can finally close this component because everything is done. Okay, and this is done. We can go straight up to this other component, which is going to be just some links. Very easy to do. So just create another file, which is going to be links.tsx. Use the rfc command to build the component, and I'm going to leave links as the name of the component and import it down here inside of the navbar /index file. So as I said, this component is very easy. So it's just a div with a class name of flex item center, and space X4, and for the large devices it's going to be space X6. Okay, and for each of the link is not a real link, so instead of using link I'm going to use span. So span, and we're going to have a task link, and for the class name we're going to go with text small. Let me just change it so we can see. We're coding font medium, transition colors, and when we hover I want to go to our primary color, so text primary. Okay, we can copy this and paste 2 times. We just have to change here the link name, so this is going to be calendar, and settings. Quickly just add a text muted on the front here and another one here, so text muted. So if you want, we can create these other 2 links in a part 2 of this video, as also we can create some authentication for the app. If you want this link, just leave a comment down below that we're going to create this second part of this project. Okay, below this div create another div. Okay, and the final section for the navbar, we're going to create this right section right here, which is just a search input and a avatar. So below this div on the navbar index, we are going to create another div just down below, and we're going to use a class name of flex items center gap of 12, and we are going to use the search component. So search, just like this, we have to create this component just here, which is going to be search.tsx. So rfc and capital, just import it. You just select the component like this, double click, and then use Ctrl and space, and it's going to show you a list of options. You can put the first one, which is this one. There we go. So as I said, the search is very easy. We can do it in just 1 second. We just have to use the input from right. We don't have the input installed, so open the terminal, Ctrl J, and we are going to use npx shadcn add search. This is the command if you want to see. No, sorry, this is my mistake. It's not search, is input. I'm sorry. So add input. There we go. It already installed. We can close it and import. So select and use Ctrl and space, and then import from the UI. Okay, so the type of the input is search, and the placeholder is search. For the class name, we're going to leave a width of 100 pixels for the medium devices, so 100 pixels, and large devices we want a width of 300 pixels. There we go. So you can already see our search input right here. And finally, we can go with the avatar. So avatar.tsx, that, as you may know, is this little section right here. So again, use RFC to create the component. Let me just put this in lowercase avatar, and we can import down here below the search, so avatar. There we go. Avatar is also very easy. You just use avatar in here and import from, so the shadcn component is also named avatar, and you can see that our component is also named avatar, which is not good. As you may know, we cannot declare two components with the same name. So inside of this component avatar, we're going to have this component avatar right here. So let me just import it, avatar from UI avatar. And as you can see, we are getting an error because it says import declaration conflicts with a local declaration of avatar because our component is named avatar. So to fix this, we can rename this import to avatar as avatar component like this. So it's the same component with a different name, so avatar component. So this avatar component is going to have a class name of margin right of 2, height of 8, and width of 8. Basically, you can just go back to the index, go to the twin switcher, and copy this right here. So we don't have to type it out again. So, but what changes is the height and the width. And there we go. You can take off this class name and change avatar to avatar comp and import the missing imports. So image and the fallback. Okay, so for the out you can leave your name, so this is for the people who can see, so like this. And for the source and for the fallback, you just put your initials right here. This is mine, so just quickly format it, and there you go. For the avatar, you can go to your GitHub and use your own avatar if you have one. I'm going to use mine, so right click on the image and import the image address. Just quickly change it here on the source. For some reason the image is not showing up, so it must be a server error. So let me just quickly restart our server. There we go. So now you can see the image right here. Okay, so now we can close everything from the Navbar because we have it done. So go back to the page. Let me close this and this, and inside of the page we are going to create the rest. So the form, we're going to create the charts and the list, as you can see. And if you see the layout of the application, you can see that we have these resizable panels. So this is what we are going to do. So we have one in the left and one in the right, and in the left has two panels, so one at the top and one at the bottom. So to do this, we are going to use the resizable panel group, which is going to have the direction of horizontal. So it's going to separate this one in the left and one on the right, and just leave a class name of height of, just leave a height of full and width of full class and border. Very nice. So with this we can create our first resizable panel. On this first resizable panel we are going to have the form, so just leave form in here, and below it we are going to have the resizable handle. Okay, and the handle is this little thing right here, so just import it and we are good to go. And then also import the resizable handle, the resizable panel down here, which is going to be the charts. This is not going to be the chart, this is going to be the list. So the list is going to be here on the right side. So inside of this form right here, we can remove the form right here, and we have to create another resizable panel group. So resizable panel group, and inside of the resizable panel group we are going to have the resizable panel, and this is going to be the form. And below the form we're going to have the resizable handle, so import. And finally we're going to have the resizable panel also, but this one is going to be the chart. And don't forget, here in the group just leave direction as vertical. Now we see that we have everything in order. So one thing that you can see is the handle, just because we forgot to add a prop here, this with handle, and one is here and the other one is right here. So with handle, and we are good to go. All right, so with the Navbar done, we can jump on to the next part, which is the form. So the form is this little section where we have a little input, a select box, a button, and a little text area. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go to the components and create a folder named form. And inside of this folder, I'm going to create a file named index.tsx, and I'm going to start the component. So this is going to be form, and make sure to import it here. So this is going to be the form. And before actually doing the form, we have to add some styles in the container of this form. So this is going to be a div right here, and it's going to have a class name of height of full, flex column, justify center, p6, and space dash y dot dash 4. So this is going to be the container, and then we're going to have a little section right here, this little section where we have a text and a description. So we need just a class of space dash of a space of some space between the two elements, which is going to be a card title that it seems that we don't have it installed. So let's open the terminal real quick, and let me use npx chatcn latest add card. So we need a card title and a card description. So card description, just like this. Let me just quickly confirm the installation, and there we go. Now we just have to import the card and the description. So inside of this card title, I'm going to create a new task. That's what we want to do with the form. And then inside of the card description, I'm going to write, what do you have to do today? Very nice. The app is taking shape. And now with all of this, let me just format the document and get back to the form. And to quickly do this, use Ctrl and left click, so you go directly to the form file. Okay, let me just say this, this file is very big. There's a lot of things that we need to do in this form, so you better get ready. So let's start by installing the form. So the component that we're going to use is this one. So npx chatcn latest add form, and besides the form, we're also going to use a library named React Hook Form, which is a library to facilitate the way of making forms. So the React Hook Form is going to be for handle all of the form, so more like in the backend, and React Hook Form is going to be for the layout of the page, so the styles and everything. So it's asking to override the button. I'm going to say yes. And one more library that we're going to use that I think it auto installed, it's Zod. Zod is a library to make some validations for the form. So whenever you're making a form, most likely you're going to use one of those three libraries all together. So for the styles, to handle it, everything, and for validation. So let's just start coding. So the first thing that we're going to do is import the form component from chatcn. So this is going to be form, but as our component is also named form, we can rename it, put in as on the front. So this is going to be form comp, just to rename it, and we're importing this from UI and form. There we go. So we can here on the div, we can replace it by form component. There we go. And okay, so inside of this form, we are going to create a native form from HTML. So the reason we're using this form is, let's go to the functional app. So is that if we type something, so let's see this, we don't have to actually click on the button to submit what we are writing. So if I click enter, you see that automatically it adds up to the list, because this is a form, right? So we don't need to actually click on the button to send the information. That's the real reason why we use form on forms. So this is going to be a form, and it has going to have a class name of space -y-2. Okay, so inside of this form we are going to have a div which is going to have some class names, which is flex items and center and gap 3. So this is going to center the items vertically, and then so the items are going to be the form field. So form field is a form field, form field is going to be a form field. So this is a form field, this is also a form field, and this is a form field. So it is everything that is going to go to the form. So this is a form field, this is a form field, this is a form field. This is not a form field, this is just a button. So you have to import this form field, and you see everything is red right here because we have some errors. And to fix these errors, we have to first start with the actual form and validation and everything else. So let me just quickly do this. So we need just a console form, and we need the use form. This is coming from React Hook form. So if you cannot import, it mostly means that it is not installed, so make sure you install it. And this is a very important part. Now we have to do the schema. So if you don't know what a schema is like a skeleton of what you expect to get from the form that you submit, right? So let me go to the form and create a schema.tsx so our index.tsx don't get too messy. So let's go here and make sure here on the schema to say use client, right? So we don't get any typos and anything. Okay, so as I said, for validation we're going to use Zod. So use Zod, make sure to import it, and we can start doing the schema. So this is going to be a very simple schema, so I'm going to name it form schema. This is going to be an object, so object, and it's going to have some properties. First, let me go here. This is the title. Okay, so we need a title. So title, and what is the type of the title? So we expect the title to be a string, so this is going to be a string, and I need at least it has 5 characters, so min 5 and maximum of 25. So this is the build app. So let me add like 4 characters, so 1, 2, 3 and 4. And if I do this, you see that it's complaining that it has to have at least 5 characters. But if I say add 5 or 6, you see that it adds up. And the same thing for the maximum 25. I cannot have a title that it has more than 25 characters. Okay, so now let's go to the description. So description is also going to be a string, and it has to have at least a minimum of 10 characters and a max of 100 characters, and it's going to be optional, which means that we don't have to pass it. But if we do pass the description, it has to have at least minimum of 10 characters and maximum of 100. Okay, and then there is the status. So status is going to be a Z union. You're going to understand. I'm going to explain this just in a second. So it's going to be an array and Z literal starting, Z literal progress, and Z Let me close this so we have more space. Literal done. So what is this? The status. So if you go to the done app, you see that we have 3 status for the task. We have starting, we have in progress, and we have done, right? So it cannot be like start doing it. It cannot be anything than those 3 status. So we want to make sure that when we send the form, this is the 3 status that we expect, right? So starting, progress, and done. I could go here and just do like a string that matters that I could get when I send the form something like this, right? We don't want this. We want or a starting or progress or done. So make sure to add this up, okay? And later on we're going to use this type for some validations. So you see this is just an object, right? But this can transform to a TypeScript type. So if I do something like export type form schema, I could use z.infer and then type of form schema. Doing this, you see that this schema turns into a TypeScript type, as you can see right here. Okay, later on we are going also to use this status. So I'm just going to copy it, right, cut it right here, and create a const. So status for this. So this is going to be a status, and just like this. And then I'm just going to export the type of the status. So this is going to be let's say task status, just like this. Is going to be as infer of type of status. So we get an actual type, so status. So now when I hover to it, you see that it's either starting, progress, or done. This cannot be just a normal string, you know what I'm saying? No, you see now this is showing up. Okay, so with this we can go back to the index and close the schema and the page. Okay, so React use form, it actually has implementation that enable us to hook it up with Zod, so our schema that we just did, right? So before sending the form, React hook form is going to go to our schema and make sure that all of those requirements that we pass here are meet. If they meet, then the form is going to be submitted. But to do this, we have to tell React hook form what are we expecting this. And to do this, we use the resolver. So we're going to use the resolver and Zod resolver because we are using Zod. So Zod resolver, and we have to import this from. We have to import from Zod. So we have to import the Zod resolver, so it's going to be Zod resolver from hook resolvers and Zod. So this is a resolver for the Zod library. And here we have to pass the schema that we just did. So this is going to be form schema. Maybe we didn't export it. Yeah, we didn't export. So let me just quickly export the form schema so we can actually export the full form schema so we can actually use it here. So besides the resolver, we has also option right here that it's all default values. So we can go here and set some default values for the form, right? We can go something like status. So the default value for status that I want is starting, right? We can do this from here if you prefer, or which I prefer is go to the schema and go something like here on the status, and just on the end add a dot and add the default, so which is starting. So if we don't pass nothing on here, or if we don't select anything, the default option is going to be starting, right? We can also do this for the title or description. So we can do that. Default is empty and default is empty. No, here we cannot put, because if we put something, then this line is going to be triggered, so we don't need to put nothing. All right, so we have our form done, and now with this form we can pass it to here. So this is a context from ChatCN, so we need to pass this form, so all of the fields are going to have the information that they need to work. So here on this field we need to pass a control, which is going to be form dot control, and this form is for the title, so we need to pass here a name and title, and this form has to render something, which is our input, right? So to do this we have to use this error function, so field, and then pass, and then return an actual element. So the element is going to be a form item, so form item, I'm going to pass here class name of grow, and then I'm going to pass a form control, and then inside of this form control I'm going to pass an input, and for the placeholder of this input we're going to pass what do you have to do. Finally, let me just spread this field that we got from this error function. Okay, this seems a lot, but now we just have to pass the form message. I'm going to explain to you what this is for, and yeah, this is actually outside of the form message of the form control, and there we go. Let me just format the document. So what we're doing here is creating a form field, and this form field is going to render something, which is the form control that contains an input. So this form message is for when we have an error. So when I add less than 5 characters, which is required to this input, we get this form message. So this is like for the errors that we got for a form field, right? Very nice. So now once this input is done, we can go back here. Let me refresh real quick, and we have an error. Let me see. I'm pretty sure this is error from the server. So to fix it, I'm going just to restart it. No, the error didn't go away, so it must be something from our code. Let me see what it is. Yeah, right, I've managed to find what it is. We are using a hook right here on this file, and if you didn't know, by default every file that you create or a component that you create is server made by default. So this is a hook, as I said, and hook needs JavaScript to work out, and this is the reason that we have to use a use client flag right here. This is going to tell Next that I don't want this component to be server made, I want the component to be made on the client, so we can actually use some reactive code on here. So now you see that our app shows up. Okay, so our input is done. Then we can pass to another section, which is this little select input right here, which we also going to make. Okay, so start by copying this and paste it just down below it, and instead of the name title, put a name of status, because this is the select box, and also going to return a form item. It's going to have a form message, and it's going to have a form control, but this is not going to have an input. This is going to have a select box, which is this component right here, which allows us to choose a lot of options from this list. Okay, so this is the component that we're going to use. So let me just quickly install it right here. Open the terminal, Command and J, and install it. Here inside of the form control we have to pass the select trigger, so select trigger, and inside of here we have to put a select value, which is going to have a placeholder of status. So we must get an error like this, and this is because we have to put a select first, so select outside, so it's select, and then everything else, so the control and the message is going to be here inside, and the form message is going to be outside, just like this. So make sure that you have the form item and you have a form message and the select on the same level, and inside of the select you have the form control, and inside of the form control you have the trigger and the select value, just like this. Okay, so now you see a status text right here, but when you click it, it doesn't do anything. This is because we have to put some content for the select box, and to do this we go here down below the form control and we type select content from UI select, and make sure that the select that you're importing is not from Radix UI as I did, and it's from UI select, so it shows up like this. Okay, so let's continue. So inside of the select content we are going to have the select item, which this item is going to have the value of starting. Nice. And now we can put some span starting right here, and we can just copy this and paste 2 more times. So this is going to be progress, and finally done. And there we go, we have our select box made. But if you go back to our app, you see that we have this little circle right here which has the red, orange and green color, which looks much better. So let's do this in our app. And if you also see here on the list, we also have something similar. So that means that we can build a reusable component for it. So let's go here on the files, which is going to be status bullet.tsx. So create a component for it, and this is going to receive some props. So props, and type is going to be props, and the only prop that we need is the status. And as I told you earlier, we're going to use this tag status right here. So we already exported. Let's just import here task status, and this is going to be a very easy component to do. We just need the const right here, which is going to be status. This coming from the props, and we need a if else statement right here. So if the status is equal to done, then we are going to return a div. We're going to use a class name right here. This div is going to have flex item center and gap to class name, and inside of this div we're going to create this little circle right here that you see. So there's going to be a div, self-closing div, and add the class name, width of 2, height of 2, rounded of full, so it's going to be fully rounded, and then the background that we expect. I'm using a background of green and 500 for the done tasks, and then instead of this, below this div that we just created, we can add a span of starting. Okay, so we can just create an else if statement right here. So else if status is progress, we're going to return almost the same thing, so we can just copy here and paste, and then instead of starting, this is going to be in progress, or yeah, progress, and this is going to be orange. Okay, so for the final part, which is the starting status, so for this we just create a else statement and paste it again, but now this is going to be red and here it has to be starting. There we go. So we just create a reusable component that we can use multiple times in our app. So instead of this, let me just take it out, and instead of this pen I'm going to use the component that we just created, this status bullet, and for the status we are going to use the starting status. So starting, same for the other two right here, this is going to be progress, and here the value has to be progress. If you didn't change, quickly change it, and here is going to be done, and also done right here. Alright, let me go see in the app how it's looking, and there we go. Now you see these beautiful options right here that we just created. Now we are almost done, so let me just copy this form field right here and go below the div, so below the div, and paste the form again. So this name is going to be description, just like this, and the only thing is that we don't need this class name right here, and instead of an input we are going to use a text area. This is bigger input, and to do this we just have to install it right here. So let me go to the terminal, install it real quick, and while installing I can just remove the input and type here text area, and then self-closing here. Okay, now we just have to spread the field right here. In here I forgot to add here use the field, that's why it's complaining. So here on the value change I'm going to call a function named on change right here, and for default value is going to be the field value, which as I said is going to be starting, right? Okay, so finally here on the text area I'm going to add some placeholder, which is going to be give me more information. No, it's not actually me, but give more information about the task. And then the class name is going to be resize none, so it's going to be impossible to resize this component. And finally we just need a button right here that's going to contain this add task. So go here on the end of this div and just above it add a button tag right here, so button, and add task. Okay, the type of this button is going to be submit, and also is going to have an icon right here, so icon, and the icon that we're going to use is io add outline, just like this. We just have to import it. That is coming from import io add outline from React icons, and I think we didn't install this library, so let's just quickly install it. So this is going to be a icon library, so just install npm install react icons, just like this, and this import is coming from react icons /io5. There we go. You see that we are getting some error here on the bottom. This is because the button is not expecting this property. So I made some modifications here on the component that comes from shadcn, which allow us to use an icon for the button. Okay, So let me go here down below on as child and add an icon prop, which is going to be optional. So icon that is going to be a React component, so React node. Let me get the icon right here. Okay, and here on the comp, let me just open it so we can add something inside. And here I'm going to put the props children, so it's probably going to be here inside, and also the icon component. Okay, so final thing here on the class name inside of this function, so cn, we're going to add some class names, which is going to be flex and gap 2, so we have some distance between the icon and the text. Okay, now you see that we have this icon right here, and now you see that we're getting closer and closer to the final app, so the form is done. Alright guys, while looking at the app, I figure out that we got one error right here, and if you click right here, you see that we get iteration failed because the initial UI does not match what was rendered on the server. And it seems that we have a button inside of a button and inside of a button. So it seems that React or Next.js doesn't allow to do that, so let's fix it. So if you go to the inspect and then go to the console, you'll see the whole logs about the error. So you see here that it starts at the navbar. So let's go to the navbar, and it says inside of a nav, so it's right here, and then inside of a div, which is, I think it's here, and then inside of twin switcher, which is here, and then there we go, we have the error. So it seems that pop over trigger is already a button, and we are putting a button inside of a button, which Next.js doesn't allow us to do that. So to fix this, I was thinking about taking off this button, so this is going to be a normal div. We are going to take off the role and the variant, and yeah, so let me refresh, and now you see that our app is broken. You see that instead of looking like this, our bottom is looking like this. So let's just pretend this is a bottom. To do this, let's go to the class name and use flex item center and a gap of 1.5. let's see. So you see that it's taking shape. One thing that this bottom has, this other one doesn't have, is like a border. So let's go here and add a border. So there we go, now we have a border. But you see that this bottom has some padding, so also padding is something that we have to add. So I think it's a padding of 5 and ph of, let's see, 2.5 maybe. No, I think that's too much. Maybe py1 and px3. Alright, maybe 2, py2. Okay, so and then you see that our edge is kinda spiky, so let's add some rounded on here. So rounded, and I think it's something like rounder 2xl maybe, and there we go. And now you see when we hover on this button, it has a background. So let's do the same for our app, which our app doesn't have. So let's go here and add a hover of pg, maybe secondary. Let me hover, and there we go. Let's also add a transition, so it gets a transition on the colors, transition all, and there we go. Now it just fixed the error, and you see that it's still working. Okay, so now we have our form. We have no more errors, which is fine. Yeah, and we have our form right here. But why we have a beautiful form if it's not doing what it's supposed to do, which is add tasks? So we have to fix that. So this is because here on the form we have nothing to handle the submit event. Okay, to fix it, let me go here to the native form and add on submit event, and then let me go with form dot handle submit and then on submit, and let me create this function real quick. So this is going to be on submit, and this function is going to be async because we're going to contact a database, and we're going to receive a data which is the form schema. And if you don't remember, form schema is the type that we defined for our form, so includes the title, description, and status. So what we did just here is we are listening for on submit event. So when we click enter or click on the button to submit the form, the first thing that it's going to do is first handle the submit. So it's going to look if all of the filters or requirements that we pass here in the schema are met. So if it is a string, if it has minimum 5 characters, a maximum of 25, so everything here has to be met before calling this function there, which is the onSubmit function. Okay, and now what we do here? Well, we have to create a task, right? And to store the task, we must have a database, and to have some contact between the app and the database in a user-friendly way, we must have a ORM, which is a way to have some contact between our app and our database. And to do this, we're going to use Prisma. So Prisma is going to facilitate the way that we're contact our app in our database. So let's go to Prisma, and we just have to install it. So let's set it up. So the first thing that we have to do, I think it's best to shut down the app. So I'm shutting down the app. Let me open the terminal because we're going to work a lot here. So the first thing that we need to do is install Prisma, right? Because we are going to use Prisma. So let's use npm install Prisma, like this. Let's go. We have Prisma, and besides Prisma, we're also going to use Prisma client. So a client, so Prisma client, and there we go. This is not npx, this is npm. So npm install Prisma client, like this. One more dependency that you should see here, Prisma client. Perfect. And now that we have the Prisma installed, let's initialize it. So npx Prisma init. So this is to initialize the Prisma client. And you see that very quickly it created a folder right here. Let me just close all the folders here and this. So if you go to Prisma, you should see here scheme Prisma. And besides this folder, it also created a .env file, which includes a database URL, which I'm going to configure just in a minute. So this database URL is where we have our database stored. So this database URL is to point where our database is located or hosted. And as you may know, we don't have any database now. So we are going to use PostgreSQL because I think it's much easier than MongoDB in those situations. So this is what we are going for. But we have one problem. We don't have any database right now. So let's just create it. And for database, I'm going to use Neon. So go to neon.tech. That's where I create my databases with Postgres. So click on Get Started, and it's going to take you to a sign-in page. I'm going to go with Google. There we go. I just completed the sign-in process. And once you finish, it's going to take you to this page right here, which is going to ask you for a project name, a version, a database name, and a database name. So let's go first with the project name, which is going to be task app. and then Postgres version we're going to leave at 16, and then database name is going to be also task app, and then for the region, choose a region which is close to you. So I'm in Portugal, so I'm going to go with Europe, so Frankfurt, which is German, I think. So with this we can create the project, and there we go. Now you see that it takes us to this page right here. And now if you scroll down, you see just this string right here, and you see that this string is our connect string. So we just have to copy this string and put right here. So just go here and click on show password, okay, and just copy it and paste right here. And there we go, and there we go. We have our database URL created. So we can close the .env file and the terminal for now. And if you go to the folder of Prisma and you go to schema.prisma, you'll see that we have some code in here. So for you it's not looking like this because maybe you don't have extension that I have, which is Prisma. So go to the extensions, the panel, and install Prisma. And once you install, close and open the Visual Studio Code and go back to the app, to the file, and you must see something like this. The first thing that you see here is generate client. So this is just to tell Prisma CLI that we are using a provider which is from JavaScript, so Prisma client JavaScript. And then right here you see database DB, which is saying to Prisma that we are using PostgreSQL, and we have our URL stored on the env file, which has a name of database URL. So if you go to the .env, you see that it's exactly what is happening. We have a file name of .env, and we have a variable name database URL. Nice. So besides that, we also need to create we still have to put some code in this file, which is to create a schema for our task. So as I said, schema is something like what we have here on the form, just to say how we want our data to look like. So we are going to do almost the same thing here on the schema.prisma file. So we're going to create a model. You can think a model as a schema, and this model we're going to name task. Okay, so this task is going to have an ID, which is going to be a string, and this string or this ID is going to be our unique identifier, so it's going to be ID. We can leave like this, but it means that every time that we try to add a task, we have to create an ID ourselves, which it might be very frustrating. So I prefer go here and create a default value, which is going to be a UUID. So UUID is a unique identifier. So every time that we add a task, Prisma is going to create a unique identifier for our task, so we don't need to create ourselves. And then we also going to have a created add. So this is going to be a date time, and again you can leave like this if you want, but I prefer to go with a default value to be now. So the time that we create the task is going to get the exact time that we have and put here on the created add as a date time value. Okay, we're also going to have a title, which is going to be a string, a description, which is going to be a string, and also a status, which is also going to be a string. There we go. So if you go to the tables, so here on the sidebar, click on tables, you'll see that we don't have anything. Well, this is because we didn't create any table for our database. So what we have to do is to push this task model or schema that we just created and add as a table to our database. So to do this, we are going to use a command from Prisma, which is going to be npx Prisma migrate dev, and we have to give a name for this migration. This is going to be init because it's the first migration that we are doing. So just click enter, and what this is going to do, this is going to go to the .env file and look for this database, and then this is going to look to our schema.prisma file, and is going to see that it has a new model named task, and it's going to create this in our database. And now if you look on here on tables, you see that we have a new migration. So migrations is right here, and we also have a folder here named migrations. So this is a new migration that we just did, and below this migration you have a task, which is exactly what we defined here in this file. So we have an ID, we have a created ad, we have a title, description, and status. So we are in a good path. So now you remember that we installed the Prisma client. Now we have to use the Prisma client, and to do this we have to generate one. So use this command named npx Prisma generate. So hit enter. And once you did that, you'll see that on the lib folder, and once you did that, you'll see that we have here a message name saying that it generates a Prisma client. Okay, so now let's define this Prisma client. Let's go to the lib folder where you have these utils and create a new file named prisma.ts. So this is going to be our client. So let's first import Prisma client that is coming from Prisma client, and then define a variable named Prisma, which is going to be a new Prisma client, and then just export it so we can use further in our app. So Prisma. Okay, so the whole reason why we are doing this is to create a task here in our app, right? So if you go to the index on submit, we should have here a function named create task, which we are going to do just in a minute. So this is going to accept a variable named data, and there we go. Now you see that cannot find name create task. Alright, this is because we didn't create a function named create task. So I'm going to create here a folder named services, and inside of services we are going to have another folder named task, and inside of this folder we are going to have index.ts. So again, create a folder named services. Inside of this folder create another folder named task, and inside of this folder create a file named index.ts. So this file is going to contain all of the services that we need to handle, create, delete, get a task, get all of the tasks, and everything. Okay, so this is going to be like a server actions. So for this I'm going to use server. So even if you're calling this from a client component or a client environment, when we call the functions that are inside of this file, this is going to be running on the server. So why running this on the server? Because one, is going to be much faster, and two, is going to be much more secure. So put a use server here so that everything that we run inside of this file is going to run on the server. So let's just export a const or a function named create task. Well, this function is going to be async, and we are going to accept the task, right? So the task is going to have the type of form schema. So import this from components, form, and schema. And what we want to do, well, we want to create a task, right? So what we are going to do is going to await Prisma So let's just import Prisma, and then if you click dot, you see that you have an option named task. So task dot create. Well, what we want to create, so we want to create a task, and for this we have to give data. So go here and say data, and the data is a description. So description is going to be task dot description. That might be description or can be empty. And then status, so status is going to be task dot status. And finally title, so task dot title. Is just it. We have our create task function done. So if you go to this index file and click 2 times on the create task function and control space, you see that we have this option to import. So import this from services task and add a wait right here, and there we go. Okay, so now let's go to our app and let's see if that's working. So let me say like hello, add a status right here of in progress, and then give some description and click here on add task. Okay, I clicked it, but nothing happens. Let's go to our Neon database and let's go to task. Let me refresh it. And now you see that we don't have anything, so we must have some bug in our app. So let's first see if we are calling this function. So console.log data. Make sure that this function is being called. So let's go to our inspect and open the console and refresh the app. Well, this is because maybe our app is not running. So let's open the terminal and use npm run dev. Make sure that your app is running. Don't do it like me. So let me take off this console log and uncomment this. Let me refresh the app. Okay, our app is running. Let me just test it again. So let me say hello world and add a status and then description, and let me click add task, and let me go to our Neon database, and again let me refresh it, and there we go. Now you see that we have a new entry or a new row to our database, which is very, very, very great. But now you see that our app, our form is pretty boring. So we click this add task, you see that nothing happens, nothing shows up that we created a task. So the first thing that I want to do is create a loading feature right here. So let me go here and create a const named isLoading. So isLoading and set isLoading. This is going to be a state. So use state, which is going to start as false. So when we click on submit, the isLoading is going to be true. And once it's done, just here below the create task, the isLoading is going to be false. Okay, let me go to React icons and let me go with a loading icon. So loading, okay, it can be this one. So what I want to do here on the bottom is when this button is loading, instead of an add outline icon, I'm going to use this icon right here. So VS loading. So just put this right here and make sure to import it. And I'm going to give a class name of animate spin. So this is going to animate a spin animation. So this is going to be loading. Okay, let me just try again. So add something here and then add task. Now you see this right there, this be loading. You saw it, very, very nice. And now besides that, I also want to add like a notification here in the bottom part saying that a new task was added. And to do this, I'm going to use a component named toast. So toast is something like, if you click here, you see that we have a notifications down here. So that's what we're going to do. So to do this, we are going to import this component. So this is going to be npx shad cn latest add toast. Nice. While this is important, we can go to the app and go to layout, and we have to wrap it up with this toaster right here. So the way I like to do is go to the app and create a providers wrapper .tsx file where we can put like use client in here, and then we can export the default function, which is going to be named providers wrapper, and then we can access some props. It's going to be type props, and the only prop that I want to accept is the children, which is going to be a react node. There we go. And let me just get this children from our props, and what we're going to return is just a fragment with the children inside. And then I'm going to import that toaster from here and use it just here above the children. Okay, and now let's go to the layout and take off the children and put the providers wrapper and put the children inside. Why am I doing this? So as you see, I put here this use client flag in the top of the file. This is because some of the providers, or this is because some providers need JavaScript code, so the browsing environment to work. So if you see here in the layout, we don't have any use client flag because I want to this part to be made on the server. So we're just creating this so this can be running on the client, because some of the libraries that we are going to import in this providers wrapper are going to need client code. Alright, so with this we can continue, which we first need to import a hook named use toast. So let me just import it. So toast, this coming from the use toast. So make sure that you're importing this. So hooks use toast, and finally let me go here and toast and put a title, which is going to be your new task was created successfully. Very nice. So let me go to our app and see if that's working. So let me just refresh and do it. So say like hello to, and then put here status, and then some description, and then click on add task. You see now your new task was created successfully. Very, very nice. Okay, our form is working, but there's one problem. We cannot see our tasks. So if you look to the final version of the app, we have here a site where we can view all of our tasks. So that's what we're going to build in this section. Okay, to do this, go to the page. Let me just close everything here. So you can go here in the three dots and click here and close all, and go here to close all of the folders so it's more organized. Go to the page, and down here where it say lists, just remove it, and we're going to add some class names to this panel. So this is going to be a max width of 75 with view width, and then mean width of 30 v width. There we go. So inside of this panel, we're going to create a div. This div is going to contain a class name, which is going to be height full, overflow dash w dash auto, and then a padding of 6. Very nice. So we are going to create here a component that I'm going to name task list. So task list, and inside of this component we're going to have the index.tsx. So as you may guess, this component is going to be responsible to show up all of the tasks. And let me just go back here to our app, use frfc to create the component, and then use task list as the name for the component. Let me just quickly import this to the app, task list. Very nice. And then here on the index, we are going to start with the class names. So the first one is going to be a space dash the epsilon dash 4, and then we're going to have another div. Okay, so in this div we're going to have a class name of space y2, and then we are going to use a component named card title. Then this card title is going to have a content of your tasks for today, and then just down below it we are going to add let's get everything done. But this is not going to be a card title, this is going to be a card description, so just make sure you import that. So let me close here the component and close this so we have more space. Okay, but you see that our ESLint is complaining. This is because we are using this little mark right here, and for some reason ESLint doesn't allow us to do that. So we have to create a dynamic block, and inside of this dynamic block put some string, some codes, and then inside of the codes put the whole string. There we go. So you see there is no complaining. This could be one option, or if you prefer, and is one of the suggestions, is to replace the string by this little code right here. That's going to do the same thing. So, and let me take off all the codes. You see that is a little bit weird, but it's working. Okay, so down this div right here is where we're going to build this beautiful table. This table is coming from chat.cn. So first thing, make sure you are importing. So below this div you're going to build this beautiful table right here, and as you may guess, this component is coming from chat.cn, this little component right here. So the first thing that we're going to do is to import it. So let me quickly do this. So npx chat.cn latest add table. There we go. And I'm going to start with the importings because I think it's much easier to do in that way. So we are going to need the table. You're going to need the table body. We're also going to need the table caption, and we are going to also need the table cell, also the table head, the table header, and the table row. Alright, so all of this is coming from UI and table. There we go. So now let's just scroll down, and below this div we're going to start with this table. So table, and we need a class name of width full and height full. Just inside of this table we're going to use the table caption. So table caption, and we're going to put content of a list of your tasks. There we go. Okay, so below this caption we're going to use a table header. And let me go back to the app so we can see it changing. So it's going to be table header. So header is going to be the header. So this is a header, so date is a header, and status is a header. So we are going to create the header, and it's going to contain the table head. So table head, the first head we are going to have is the date, and then the second one is going to be the title, the third one is going to be the status. There you go. If you go back to our app, you see that we already have a header to our table right here. Okay, and now we need the body, so we are going to use the table body. There we go. And for this we need the tasks, right? So before actually doing the body, we need to fetch all of the tasks that we have in our database. And if you remember, we used Neon to store all of our tasks. So if you go here, you see that we have our table with some tasks inside. So what we're going to do now is fetch all of those tasks so we can use in our app. So I'm going to define a variable named tasks, and this task is going to await a function named get tasks, right? So as we are using await right here, we need an async flag, so we are going to wait for a thing to load. Okay, but as you may know, we didn't create this function yet, so that's what we're going to do now. Go to the services, and just here on the task folder and in the index folder, just down below this function that we just did, we are going to create a new one. Okay, the name of this function is going to be get tasks. So this is going to be export async function. This is going to be get tasks. So instead of this function, we're going to have a const of tasks. So this is going to be the task that we're going to get. And where is this task coming from? Well, this is coming from Prisma. So we need to await our Prisma, go to the task table, and we are going to find many. There we go. We could just leave like this and return the tasks. This would work perfectly, but I prefer to order everything on, so order by, and we are going to order by the created at attribute, and we're going to go with the descent order. There we go. With this, we have our function to get all of the tasks from our database. As you're seeing, this is very easy. And then you can go to the get task function and import it. There we go. And let me go back to the form. There we go. And now with our task right here, it's time to show them up. Okay, so what we're going to do is down here or inside of the body, we're going to go over all of the tasks. So task map, and then task, and for each task we're going to return a table row. So table row, and then this table row needs a key, so the key is going to be task.id, and then we're going to have a class name of group. Okay, inside of this table row, we're going to create the table cells. So the first cell is going to be the date, so it's going to be table cell, which is going to contain the date, the time that we created the task. So I'm going to put here task created at. There we go. And you see that we have this little error right here because this is an actual date, and date is an object, and as you may know, we cannot put dates or objects directly here on the JSX. To fix this, we are going to create a function which is going to transform this into a data object date into an actual visible date, like here. So for example, 12 September, we are going to do it right here. Okay, so I'm going to create a utilities folder, so it's going to be utils, and inside of these utils we are going to create a file named getDate.ts. Okay, on my GitHub, or if you go to this project, you can go to utils and then getDate.ts. You are going to find an array of all of the months. If you prefer, you can just write yourself, like here, if you prefer, or you can just copy from my GitHub. Do as you like. So I'm going to export a function named getDate. Okay, this is going to expect a date, which is going to be of type date. And what we're going to do is initialize a class, which is going to be date, and we're going to pass the date inside. Okay, and then what we're going to do, you are just going to return a string, which we are going to use the d.getDate. What this is going to do is return the day, so the day, and then this code that I'm going to write, so month, and then d.get month. What this is going to do is return the month. So this return the day, the number of the month. So if it's January, it's going to return 0. If it's February, it's going to return 1. And then with this number, we are going to map to the actual month. Okay, so now let's go back to our table, and inside of here I'm going to just take it out, and I'm going to call the function that we just created, and inside of this function and inside of here I'm going to put the task.created. Now if you go back to our app, you will see that we already have the day of that our tasks were created. So besides this function, we're also going to add a class name named font medium, so it's going to get a little bit bolder. There you go. And now we can copy this one more time, and this is going to be the task.title. So there you go, the title. And finally we can copy it one more time, and this is going to have a class name of capitalize, so capitalize, and then flex items center and gap dash 1.5. Let me just extend it a little bit more. There we go. So inside of here we are going to reuse the component that we created for the status. So if you remember, here on the components and here in status bullet, we created this little component that we also used here on the form. So we are going to reuse it now. So this is going to be status bullet, and then pass the status here, and the status is going to be task.status. Okay, this is complaining because it thinks this is the string, but in reality this is just a task status. So we are using this as to tell TypeScript that we know what we are doing, and we know that this is not just a string, this is actually a task status. Okay, so down below here we are going to create a new span, which is going to contain the task.status. I mean, we don't need it because our component already has. So we also don't need these flex names because we already did this inside of our component. Nice, we already can see our tasks. Let me try to add a new task right here. So hello, and then add a status and some description, and add task. Okay, you see that it says that our task was created successfully, but you don't see our task right here. You can only see if you refresh the page. You see that now I refresh the page, I can see the new task. So this is because we didn't actually made this to refresh our data. So if you see here on this function, we are creating the function, and this is all what we're doing here. So we need to have a way to stay to Next.js that the data that we have in this component is too old. So when we want to do this, well, we want to do this when we create a task. So let's go to this function right here, and down here below the task, below this little part where we create the task, we are going to call a function named revalidate path. So what we're going to pass to this function is just this / and then layout. Okay, so what this is doing, this is saying to Next.js, hey, the data that I have in my wall app, so / layout, so it's going to refresh the whole layout. It's saying to the data that we have in this wall app is old, so we need to refresh it. To do this, we are going to revalidate the path. So the path that we're using is the home path, so it's just forward, and I want to refresh the whole layout. It's not just a page, I want to refresh the whole layout. Okay, let's test if this is working. So let me say hello tree, and then put the starting and add task. There we go. Now you see that every time that we create a task, this is already updated. Now that I see we have a little issue right here, we have two startings. So let me go back to the status palette, and here is not starting. I mean, here is not starting, here it's done. So let me change to done and refresh it. There we go. Now we see that this is right. Very nice. Okay, we have our form, we have our tasks, but let's say that I'm going to create a new task right here. So it's going to be create a video. So video, there you go. You see that I created here a typo, but we can not delete or edit our task. So this is what we are going to do in this section. So if you go to our final app, when I click to one of the tasks, you see that it opens a modal, and where we can edit the task as we want. So instead of DDDD, I'm going to put like A and change here the status and save the changes, give some description, and now you see that this updated. So this is what we are going to do here in our app. So to do this, you see that this is a model. Okay, so this model, we could use the one that's coming from ChatCN, but I preferably don't like to use it because it doesn't come with like hooks and functions that we can use to close the model. It's all JSX, so I personally don't like it. So that's why we are going to create our own model in this section. Okay, so let me close all of the tabs and close all of the folders. So we are going to go to the components, and inside of UI we are going to create a new component, which is going to be the model. Okay, so go with RFC, there we go, and let's give a name of model. Go. Okay, so let's create the model. So this is going to be a div. Inside of this div is going to contain a class of fixed z-20. So this is going to, so we need this z set, so our model is going to appear on top of everything. So this is like the perspective where our model is going to be shown. Okay, so this is fixed, and then we need inset 0. So inset 0 is going to it's actually the same thing as doing left 0, right 0, top 0, and bottom 0. So we need just inset 0, and then we're going to give a background of zinc 900 and a transparency of 900. So you see that we have a background right here, but it's not fully black, we have some transparency on the background, so that's why we need this //900. Okay, and we also need the flex items center and justify center. All right, and down here on the div, inside of this div, we are going to use a class name, which is going to be bg background. So bg background is the color of the background. So bg.background, this is going to be the actual content of the model. Okay, so we created like the container, which is going to be this outside part, and then we're using flex item center and justify center to center this model right here. Okay, so background text white, then we are going to round it a little bit, and then we're going to have a max height of 900 of 90, and then VH, so you cannot have more than 90% of the whole screen. And then for the overflow dash Y, we're going to leave as auto. All right, and then for the medium devices, we're going to have a maximum width of 70% of the width of the screen, so it's going to be 70 VW. And then for the normal devices, this is going to be max W dash 900 VW. Okay, and now inside of this div, we're going to have another div, and this div is going to have a class name of flex column and gap 1. Okay, and inside of this div, we're going to have one more div. We need one more. Okay, so then we need a class name inside of this div. It's going to have a py4 px8 border bottom and border bottom. We need a border bottom and a border bottom white, and then /10, so it's going to have a transparency of 10. And then inside of this div, guess what, another div, and this div is going to have a class name of flex gap 12 items center and justify between. Okay, no more divs for now. Okay, but we are going to receive some props from this model, so let's just accept some props in here and define the props. So type props. So what we're going to expect is a children, and we can leave react node on here, and then close. So this is going to be a function, so we can close the model. And then we also need a title. So a title is this little part right here. So title, which is going to be close, is going to be a function that's going to return void. So it's not going to return nothing. That's what void means. And then we need a title, which is going to be a string. And finally, we need is open. That's going to be a boolean. So this boolean is going to be used to show or hide our model. So just accept the props that we just created. So props, and then we have the is open. Okay, this is the first one. So if the model is not open, it doesn't make sense to show it, so we can return no. Okay, so one more thing that we accepted from the props is the title. So if we have a title, then we're going to show it. So the title is going to be span, so span, and it's going to have a class name of text XL, so it's going to be a little bit bigger than the others, and we're going to press the title here inside. So if we don't have any title, then we are not going to show anything. Okay, and then besides the title, we're also going to have a button. This button is this little thing right here, which we are going to use to close it. So button add a class name, which is going to be cursor pointer. And then when we click on this button, what we want to do, well, we want to close the model. Okay, and this function close we are accepting from the props. There we go. Okay, we just need to put the little icon on here, which is going to be IO close, which is coming from React Icons IO/5. Okay, I cannot really show you how this is how the model is looking, because we need to do something before actually using the model, but let's just keep on. Okay, so below the bottom and below this div and below this div again, we're going to create another div. So 2 divs above, we are going to add a class name of p8 and add the children inside. So the children is going to be the actual content of our model. Let me just import or export. Let me just get the children from the props, and there we go. We are almost done. So as you can see, when we click outside of the model, it closes automatically. To do this, we are going to need a ref. So let me create a function here named model ref, and this has to be above the if. There's going to be a use ref. We use ref we use to create reference to HTML elements. So we could go like model element like this, and then do the document dot get element by ID or something like this, but it's not really practical. So we use the use ref hook. Okay, so this is referring to a HTML div element, which can be a HTML div element or null. And at the time that we create this reference, this is going to be null, so leave null like this. Okay, and then you can go here, model ref, and put inside of the second div that we have here. So go here and ref, because this is the div that has the content, you know. So this little div right here, we have this big container right here, and every time that I click on this container, I want to close the model. But it's not every time, right? Because if I click here, I don't want it to close. I just want when we click outside of the model, as you can see. So outside, not inside of the model. So one of the steps was creating the ref, which we just did, and one other step is create an on-click event right here, and then pass a function named on-screen click right here. Make sure that you are importing use client, because one, we are using a hook right here. So every time that we use a hook on a component, it has to be a client component. And two, because you are listening to an event, so make sure that you are using the client. Okay, this function is going to be fairly simple. So let me just define it right here. So on screen click, we are going to expect an event. So event, I'm going to leave as type any, which is going to be used later. So I'm going to create a function variable named dimensions. So dimensions, and this is going to come from the model ref dot current dot get, and we are going to use this question mark. So if it doesn't exist, this is just going to be undefined. It's not going to return us any errors. Okay, so get bounding client rect. And if we don't have any dimensions, then we can just return right here, and the function ends here. Okay, so what it does, so this model ref dot current get bounding client rect is used to get the information about the model. Okay, so with this we can get how much this is on left and how much this is on right how much this is on top and how much it's on the bottom. So we can actually calculate when we click here. So if where we click is less than the left of this container, then this is going to close. So, and also if we click more than the right of this container, this is going to close. And as well, if this click more than this is on top, it's going to close, and on the bottom. So this is exactly what we are going to do. So we're going to use that event right here that we just passed. So this is going to be e.client.x, because this event gives us this, shows us the where we are clicking on the page. So client x, it's less than dimensions dot left, it is going to close. So close like this. So not only that, so it also, if the client x is more than the dimensions dot right, and client y is more than dimensions dot top, and finally if the client w, if the client y is less, I mean here is less and here is more, so here top and then bottom. Okay, we are almost close. Okay, with this we have our model created, and now we are going to finally use it. So let's go to task list, and instead here on the title, we are going to remove it for now, because we are going to create here another component instead of task list, which is going to be title-cell.tsx. Okay, this component is just because we need some client code. We could go here and use client here above, but I am not going to do this, because one, we are importing data just directly from the component, and if we use the client flag here, this is not going to be possible. And two, because this component is going to contain a lot of things, so it's going to be very big, and we don't want it to put everything in just one file. So we are going to create this component, so it's going to be title cell, so title cell, and let me just quickly import here title cell. There we go, and let's create this component. So one thing that we have to accept from the props is the task. So let me create the type here quickly. It's going to contain the task, so task, and the task is coming from Prisma client. Okay, let's define the props right here, and we can destructure this tasks that's coming from props. Okay, so right here we are going to one, show the title, and two, show the model. Okay, so let's start by showing the title. So let's create a span, and this span is going to have a class name of group hover, or just hover, doesn't matter, hover underline. So when we hover on the title, it's going to show an underline right here. There we go, and then add the task dot title. Let me just fix this. This is going to be task, and make sure that you are passing the actual task to the title cell. There we go. Another typo here is task dot title. Let me see if you can see the titles. There we go, everything still working. Okay, and you see when we click, it doesn't do anything, right? This is because we didn't implement the model yet. Okay, so for the model we're going to use a const is open, or just, yeah, is open is right, and is open set is open right here, which is going to be of type useState. For the default value we're going to use false. Okay, so when we click on this pen, so on the title, I want to open the model, right? So I'm going here and create a function named open. It's going to be an inline function, so we're just going to set the is open as true. And as you might guess, we are going to have the open, we're also going to have the close function. So close, which is going to close the model, so leave here as false. Okay, so here on the click, leave here the open function, and then here we are going to finally use our model. So one of the things the model needs is the title, so the title is going to be task details, and then we need to pass the is open, so is open, so our model can actually close and open. There we go. And then the close function, so our model can close the function. So we use this function here on the function that we created, and also here when we click on the close button. Okay, as a child we are going to pass a div here, which is going to have a class of min w dash 500 pixels. So it's going to be the minimum width of this model. Okay, let me just make sure that we can see what we are doing. Yeah, this is complaining. Yeah, this is because we are using a useState here, and we need a useClient so it can actually work. Let me refresh. On supporter server component type, undefined it. I'm pretty sure this is a server error, so I'm going to quickly just refresh the server. So, and yes, it was. So you can see our app here working, and when I click, you can already see the model working. So again, when we click on this pen, we are going to turn this variable is open to true via this function, and this is going to trigger a refresh of this model, which it was null because it was false at first, as you can see, but when we clicked here it turns to true. So this is going to show the actual component right here, and then we have the actual model, we have the background, and we have this function, so we can close here outside, not inside, as you can see, and we also have this little X, so we can close the model. And then we have the content, which we can put anything that we want here inside. So if I type something, you see that this is going to show up. Okay, so if you go to our final version, you see that we have a form. Okay, what we could do is create a form, which is the obvious answer, but you see that we already have a form built. It wouldn't make too much sense creating a form twice, right? So what we're going to do is to reuse the form components. So I'm going to put form right here and pass it here. There we go. So now you see when we click here, you can hopefully see the form, but as you may guess, we have to make some modifications, because one, it doesn't have the title, so when we click it's supposed to show the default value, which is the title that it has, the description and the status, as you can see, which we don't have it here. So we may have to make some modifications to this form component, and to our form have some information, we have to pass the task to it. So let me go here and pass the task, so our form can have some information. Okay, let me just close this because we are not using it, and I see that we have an error here. Yeah, this is because we are not accepting any task from our form component. So let's just quickly do this. So it's going to accept some props, and the prop that we're going to accept is the task. So task is not going to be a required value, because it's not going to be a required value because here we don't have to pass a task, because we are not editing, we are creating a task. But we do need here so we can have some information about the task. Okay, with this we can get the task from the props. So props, and get the task. There we go. So if we have a task, the problem means that we are editing the task, right? We are not creating. So let me quickly add a variable name is editing here. That is going to help us to know if we are editing or if we are creating a task, because we are using the same component, and we have to know when we are creating or when we are editing the function. One of the things that we're going to need with this as editing is here in the default values. So let me go here and say default values. So if we are editing, we can pass some default values. If we are not going to pass anything. So here is editing. We are going to pass the title, which is going to be the task.title. We are also going to pass the description, which is going to be the task.description. And finally, we are also going to pass the status. That's going to be task.status, which the type is going to be task status, as you can see. One thing that I forgot to add here is the status starting. So no matter what, this is going to start as starting here on the form. There we go. Because let me just remove it so you can see. If you remove it, it's that as status. But if we add this line of code, it starts as starting. Okay. One more thing that we need to do here is remove, and there we go. So now when I click, let's say this function, this little task right here, you see that it starts with the actual title of the task, and it doesn't start empty. And we also have the default status of the task. So as you may guess, we have to remove this little button because we are not going to add a task, we are going to edit a task. So let me go here where we have the button, and we are going to surround this by this dynamic block. And if we are editing, we are going to show nothing, but if we are not, we are going to show the button. There you go. Now you see that the button doesn't show up. But how do we actually edit? Okay, we have to edit, we have to create two buttons. To edit, we have to create the button. So one button is going to be to edit, and the other one is going to be to delete. So below here of the form field, we are going to create a dynamic block, which is going to be is editing. So if we are editing, we are going to show a div. If we are not, we're not going to show anything. So this div is going to have some class names, which is going to be flex, item, center, and gap 2, and it's going to contain the button that I was talking about. So button, and one of the buttons is going to be save changes, so to edit, and the other button is going to say delete. There we go. So those buttons are going to have different variants. So the variant for the save changes button is going to be secondary. so it's going to show another style. There we go. And yeah, I think it's better without the secondary. Yeah, I think it's better like this. And then we have the delete, which is going to have a variant of destructive. There we go, as you can see right here. And we also have to pass a type of submit down here, and make sure when you go to the bottom, the type here is going to be bottom. Why we are doing this? Because when we have a bottom inside of a form, the form treats this bottom as the type of submit, right? Because so when I click to this bottom, this is going to submit the form automatically. But when I click on this button, I want this to edit the task, right? So that's why we have this on submit to handle the on submit, right? But when I click to the delete button, I don't want this to edit, I want this to delete. But as this button is of type submit, this is going to submit the form, causing to edit the task, what we don't want. So that's the reason that I'm going here and say type bottom, and we are only going to change if we pass another value. So we go here, and if we have a type of the bottom, we are going to pass the type, and if we don't have, this is going to be of type bottom. There we go. Okay, one more thing that we have to pass is the disable. So disable is going to disable the bottom. So you see I clicked here, nothing happens because it has to disable. So this is going to be disabled when it's loading. Okay, we're going to use this variable later when we edit or delete the function. So I just press disable here on the save and delete bottom. There we go. And there we go. We already have the form to edit the tasks. Okay, I think it's better to start with the delete functionality because it's much easier than creating the on update functionality. So let's start. So we need a function here named on delete. So this is going to be a sync function. There we go. And the first thing that we have to check is if we have a task ID. So if we don't have any task ID, then we are going to return. There we go. So there we go. And then we can await what to delete our task. So I'm going to pass the task.id right here. And as you may guess, we didn't create this function. So let's go to the services of the task and create it very quickly. So this is going to be export async function named delete task. The only thing that we need is the ID, so we can actually know which task we want to delete. For this, we are going to await Prisma to go to the task table and delete the table that we want, where the ID is equal to the ID that we pass. Okay. Once again, when I delete the task, I want to automatically refresh here the data. So I'm going to use the function named revalidate path again. So as you're seeing, we are repeating this function 2 times, which is not a good practice. Instead, what we have to do is create here a main function, which is going to be revalidate page data, like this, and call this function here. There we go. And we can replace it here and here. So it makes our app much readable. And if we want to change here, it changes to the create task function and to the delete task function. There we go. Okay, so we can import this function and pass the onDelete handler to the bottom. So when we click here, I want to delete the function, and there we go. So let's just see if that works. So let me delete this hello world from 16. So let me just delete this hello world. So delete. There we go. Now you see that it disappeared. Nice. You see that this is fully working. The whole reason that we created this form is to edit the task, is not to actually delete. So we are going to now create the edit functionality. So go back to the form, and in this form we are going to make some changes along with the changes that we just made. So the first thing that we are going to do, you see that we have this create test function. We are only going to create if we are not editing. So this little exclamation mark serves as this thing. So if the editing is false, that means that we are not editing. You could use it like this, or use the question mark, which I prefer. So if we're not editing, we are going to create a task. But if we are editing, so else, what we are going to do is to update the task that we already have. So update task like this, and of course we don't have this function made yet. So let's go to the services and create this function very quickly. So again, export async function named update task. This function is going to accept a task. There we go. We are going to await the Prisma.task to update what? To the task where the ID is equal to the task let me just take this thing and import the task right here. So is equal to the per task.id. Okay, we also have to pass the data, so it's going to be the new task, so the Prisma can update it, which is going to be the task that we just passed. Okay, once again we have to revalidate the page data. So revalidate the page data so we can get the newest values. There we go. And now we have to use the actual function. So first thing, import it, and now here we have to pass the values. So let me go here and say new task, which is going to contain an ID, which is going to be the task.id, and then the created at to help me with the defining of this variable. I'm going to pass here as task, so this is going to help me when I try to type something. So you see, created at is going to be the task dot created at, and then the description is the task dot description. Well, this is wrong, because if we pass the task dot description, this is going to update with the old value of the task. What we want is the new value that's coming from the form. So it's not going to be task dot description, it's going to be data dot description. So data dot description, or empty, because it can be empty. And besides this is going to be also the status. So it's going to be data dot status, so the data from the form. And finally, the most important one, the title, so that data dot title. Okay, finally we just have to pass it to the update task function. All right, and now one more thing that we have to change is this message. It says your new task was created successfully, and what if we are editing, right? So we have to change that. So if we are editing, this is not going to be your new task was created. This is going to be your task was edited. So your task was edited successfully. There you go. Now let's see if that's working. So one more server error. Let me just restart the server. There we go. And let me try to edit this task right here. So it's going to be 3333. Save changes. Your task was edited, and you can see that it already updated. Now this is fine, but we have one little issue right here, a user experience issue. That is when we update the task, we have to close the component, or we have to close the model ourselves. So I want to, every time that I edit a task, I want the model close automatically. As you know, the close function that we have, it's here on the parent component of the form. What we could do is pass this close function to the task, which it would work, but it's not a very good practice, because not every component that uses the form wants to close a model, right? What we could do instead is create something like a custom event, right? So go here to the props, and on submit or delete, we are going to call the function. So it's going to be of type void. We can upset this from the props. So on submit or delete. So every time that we delete or create or edit, we are going to call this function. So on submit or delete, call this function if we have this function, right? So this question mark is if we have this function, then call it, because imagine that this is undefined. This would cause an error, right? So if we have this function, then call the function. Okay, so we are going to do this on the onSubmit function, as well on the onDelete function. So every time that we delete or create or edit a task, this function is going to be called. Okay, let's go back to the title cell and extend here the props. So when we edit or submit, when we submit or delete a task, what I want to do is close the component, the model automatically. There we go. So now let's try to delete this one. So if I click here delete, you see that it deleted automatically. Let's try to edit this task form. So instead of video, I'm going to put video, and then let's add some description in here and save the changes. And now you see that it's working. So even if I try to change here the status, it's still working. Now let's try to delete some, and there we go. Okay, we are getting closer and closer to the final version of our app. The only thing that is missing is the charts. So the charts, we can do this in 10 or maybe 15 minutes. This is going to be very, very easy. So once again, close all of the folders and close all of the tabs so we can work in a clean environment. So go to the app and then to the page, and in this page, it's where we are going to create the chart. Okay, so go here and remove this, and we need a class theme of minimum height of 30 VH, so 30% of this, of the screen, and then height full. Okay, and then go to the component and create a component named chart. So this is going to be inside of the folder named charts. We are going to have the index.tsx. There we go. Quickly create this charts component, and guess what? we have to import to pass it here on the page. Charts, there we go. Let me go back here to see if we can see the charts. There we go, you can see it right here. So for the charts, we are going to use the chat.cn charts. As you can see, it gives us some charts that we can use, and we are going to take advantage of that. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is, of course, get the values for the chart. So as you can see, this chart shows how much task we need to get done, how much task we already have done, and how much tasks are in progress. Okay, so this is what we are going to do right now. So first thing, as I said, is to get the values for the form. Okay, and for this we are going to go to the services and the task services, and we are going to create a function named we're going to create a sync function named get task count by status. And what we're going to do is use, so we need to know how much tasks we need are on the starting status, how much tasks are on the done status, and how much tasks are on the progress status. So let's go here and create the starting, and we need to get the tasks that are on the task status. Okay, so what we could do here is go like await Prisma dot task dot find many, so find many, and find all of the tasks where the status is starting. What this will do is return us like an array with a response. So I could go like here and say res. As you can see, this is going to be an array, and then say res.length, right? Because this would give us the number of tasks with the status of starting. Well, this is very, very wrong, because we don't need to get the actual tasks. We just need to get the number of tasks with the filter that we passed. Okay, so for this, Prisma already has a way to do it. So we can go here and say Prisma.task.count. So to count every task where the status is starting. In that way, we are not actually fetching the tasks, we are fetching the number of tasks that has the status of starting. We can do this 2 more times. So this is going to be progress, and this is going to be done. Okay, we of course have to change it right here, and make sure that you are awaiting here. So await, and we can finally return this starting, progress, and done. Okay, you can leave it like this, but it has one issue, that is performance issues. Well, because this is awaiting for the starting, so this is because the progress count is waiting for the starting count to finish. So what it's going to do is like wait until the starting is done, so we can pass it another line, which is progress, because we're using the await here. So this is going to await the starting to finish, and then once the starting is finished, then the progress is going to start, and then the done is going to wait until the progress is finished, and once the progress is finished, then the done is going to start. Well, this is not completely wrong, okay? It's just a performance issues that we can fix very, very quickly. The way that we're going to do is going to use the promise. So await promise.all, and we're going to pass an array here. So this is going to be starting, this is going to be progress, this is going to be done. There we go. And then just pass here the Prisma for the starting and the other one for the done, just down below it, and separate from commas. There we go. And there we go. We just remove the semicolon. So what it actually does here is saying to, hey, you don't have to wait until all of you don't have to wait until the starting is done. You can all of them can start at the same time. So it's going to start the starting, the progress, and the done at the same time. So if when the starting is done, then the starting value is going to be populated. When the done is done, it's going to go to the done, and the progress is done, is going to go to the progress. So it doesn't need to depend. It doesn't need to depend one of the promises to be, one of the functions to be fulfilled. It can start all of the same time. So it gives us some more performance to our app. There we go. So now we can actually use the function that we created, which I'm going to name count, which is going to be an object. You see here we are returning an object. So the object name that I want to give is count, and what we are going to do is await the get task count by status. And as we are using await right here, we have to use an async component. Okay, and there we go. So if you go to here to the charts, you see that we need a data to populate. We need a data so our form can actually work, right? We need a data and the config. Let's start with the data. So let me create here a const chart data. It's going to be an array. Well, we're going to have the status, which is going to be starting, and then we have to pass the count, and then it's going to be count dot starting, and we are going to fill it with color of EF4444, so 4 times 4. This is going to give us this red color right here. Besides this, we are also going to need the progress. So progress, there we go, and it's going to be count dot done, and then we need the fill. So this is going to be the color, so 22C55A, and finally we need the done. There we go. So this is not progress dot done, this is progress. This is not progress, this is not count dot done, this is count dot progress. And this color, it's my mistake, this is the color for the done. There you go. For the progress, the color is different, which is F97, 31, and 6. This is my mistake, and I think everything is right. There you go. Okay, so we need to actually use the chart data. So we have to create another component, which is going to be the actual charts.tsx here. So this is because this component that we are doing is just to get the data. So this is going to be a server component, and then the chart is going to be a client component. So we have to pass the use client right here. Okay, so now let's just use the charts component. So again, this is named charts, this is also named charts. So I'm going to name this charts comp, define this as charts comp, so we can import the charts as shards comp, there we go, is coming from shards. Okay, this is going to need some data, so pass the data right here and pass the shard data. I think we can leave like data like this. There we go. I mean, this is not shard, this is shards as comp. Okay, as I said, besides the data that we are already passing here, and we also need to receive from the props, so let me just return use from the props. Type props is going to receive data. Well, the data is just an object that has the status, which is a string, has the count, which is a number, and has the fill, which is a string. So there's going to be an array of objects. So we can quickly get this here. So const data from the props, so we can later on use on the shards. This is just my mistake. This is not like the shards component is a default one, so we don't need to do it like this, right? Because this is not the default. We can directly just rename it like this. There we go. And now for the final part of this video, we are doing the form, the shards, which we already have the data right here, and now we need to do some config to the shards. Okay, so it's going to be const shard config, and then we have to pass here the starting object, and then label starting. So this is going to be for here, so for each one of the bars. So we are going to have one bar named starting, and then another bar for the progress, which is going to name progress, and finally one for done, so progress for done. Okay, so now let's use all of the data that we just gathered now. So we are going to use a card. Okay, this card is going to have the class name. Yeah, make sure to import the card, so double click on it and import this from the UI. So it's going to have a class name of flex column, and height full. And then this card is going to have a header, so card header, which is also going to have class name of flex items center, and padding on the bottom as 0. Okay, this card header is going to contain a card title, which is going to say bar shards, and also a description is going to be card description, and this description, let me just fix it real quick, it's going to say your task status. There we go. And finally, this is going to contain a container just down below it, so card content. There we go. This one card is also going to contain some class names. It's going to be flex-1 and padding bottom of 0. Alright, now we are going to use the components that are going to be used to build the actual shards. This is what we was doing right now. It's just the card that's going to be the container, and now we are going to create the actual content. So one thing that we need is the shard container, so shard container, there we go, and we have to import this port shard container, from a library named Resharts that we don't have it installed. To install it, we have to use this cn command that's going to automatically import this Resharts library. So use npx cn latest add shard, so it's going to install the shards library. The file car.tsx already exists. Would you like to overwrite it? You can say yes, because we didn't made any changes to it. Okay, so besides the shard container that we are importing here, this is my mistake, this is not coming from shards, this is coming from components UI/shard. Okay, so we have the shard container, we also have the shard config, the shard tooltip, and the shard tooltip content. Okay, so this is coming from the UI card shard, and then we are also going to import things from the Resharts library, which is the bar shard, the Cartesian grid, and the rectangle, and finally the x-axis. Very nice. Yeah, it seems that this is a lot, but we are almost finished. And then we need to, so here on the shard container we have to pass this vertical right here. Okay, so in the shard container we have to pass the config. So the config is the shard config, we can just name config like this. So pass the config like this, and then it's going to have a class name of height full and width of full. Okay, let me just restart the server so we can see our app working. Okay, so inside of the shard container we are going to have a bar shard, so bar shard like this. So this is basically saying that we're going to use bars for the shard, so bar shard. There we go. We have to pass accessibility layer, so this is for the people that have the need accessibility for the websites. And then finally we are going to pass the data. So the data is what we are getting here from this function we are using right here. There we go. Let me just refresh it. For now you can't see nothing because we still have some things that we need to add. One of the things is the Cartesian grid, and then press prop name vertical. There we go. This is for this little grid that you see here, so we are doing this on our app. So now you see the grid, and now we need to pass another one named x-axis. There we go, which is going to have a data key for status. There we go. Now you see it right here. And then we need to pass tick line as false, so we don't need a tick line. And for the tick margin we're going to leave as 10. So this is for this little space between the labels and the shards. And then axis line I'm going to leave as false. And now you see this is on lowercase. Well, this is because this is getting from here, right? So we don't want this on lowercase, right? We want this on uppercase. To fix it, let me format the document real quick. Let's go to the x-axis and tick formatter, use this prop. So we are going to get the value, and we are going to do is use the short config or just config, we'll rename it, and use the label as the label. So pass here the value, and there we go. Instead of starting with lower cases, now we have the first letter with uppercase. But now you see that we are getting an error. This is because TypeScript don't know what value actually is, and we can say that this is a key of, so this is just a key of the type of chart. Config is not chart config, it's just config. So we're just saying, hey TypeScript, this value is just a key of the config object, and now you see that this is not complaining anymore. And then below the x-axis we need to press the chart tooltip, there we go, and then the cursor is going to be as false, and then the content is going to be the actual chart tooltip content, and we are going to add the label. If you want, you can hide the label. So the tooltip is just this little thing right here. So this little floating thing that you are seeing when we hover on the components, on the bars, you see that this little thing appears. There we go. And now it's the time to create the actual bars. So let me go here and say bar. The data key is going to be count, and then stroke width. There we go. You can already see that we are having the data, the charts right here. For some reason this is black, is maybe because we don't have this side right here. Just add it, and now you can see here. Okay, and for the stroke width I'm going to leave as 2. So stroke width is, you're going to see, is like a bar. So for stroke width I'm going to leave as 2, and then the radius I'm going to leave maybe at 10. Let's see how it's at 10. Maybe, as our app is very roundy, I will leave 20 maybe. So it has a form which we can add some tasks. So this is a task, and then a description of hello, and we can put in progress and add a task. So it needs, as you can see, also has some validation, hello world, and then add task. You see when we add the task, this is automatically updated. So now we have 2 tasks in progress, and you can see that this is true. 2 tasks as done, you can see that this is also true. So we can add as much tasks as we want. As we add the tasks, you see that our chart it changes as we change the tasks. Besides adding the task, we also can remove a task. So if I go here and click on one of the tasks, I can delete it. You see that our charts also moves. So remove, and if I want, I can edit this task. So this is, and then put this like as starting and save changes. You see that it also changes, and this is very cool. If you want, in the next video we can create a calendar, or maybe create authentication. So we are going to have separated tests for separated users. Maybe create a settings part. This is, you name it. We can also make this search input work. You can leave on the comments. For now, it's just it, and I see you in the next video.